straight away. So, hello, welcome to #SquareBast, the Old World Warhammer podcast, The Road to the Old World. I'm joined by Mr. Val Heffelfinger. Hello, Val.
Hello, Rob. Long time no chat in front of people.
Heartbreak is how I feel about it because, as I said to you just off air a moment ago, I only want to sit and talk with you about Old World for maybe 4 to 14 hours.
Well, maybe you could tell fucking Miniac to like wash his hands so they're not so sticky and leaking all over the place. It's wild, man.
It's
wild. You were inundated with some stuff, so I had to respect that. I had to. I didn't want to, but I did.
I appreciate you respecting that as well because that video did really well. It nearly hit the 20K mark, which was fun.
Hey man, that's getting de rigueur for you, bud. You're slumming it down here in the New Old World podcast.
The New Old World podcast
New Old
is
World.
easily one of my favorite shows. Fuck off. I would absolutely adore to spend the next 4 hours with you talking Old World. I think all we really got time for is talk about the Dev Diary. But next week, chat, podcast listeners, YouTube guys, me and Val, Thursday, 11 a.m. I think we've confirmed that now.
Yeah, because BST happens on Sunday, so yeah, I can do the early shift.
We're doing Chaos Dwarfs, which I am, and I think, how prepped are you? Because I feel like you're very prepped.
Well, I've been marinating on this little puppy right here.
Holding up Tamra Khan to the faces.
This little faux leather beauty.
Is that a soft touch book?
Is it? I mean, it's definitely a what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It's got a limited edition feel to it. I don't. It's a Forge World book, man. Like you don't get this shit anymore. It's beautiful.
I got a follow-up question. I wondered what you thought about this. So anyone who doesn't know, Forge World, although now known as SDS, Specialist Design Studios. Forge World's actually been retired internally. Interesting little update for you, Val.
Have you told the microsite?
Do we own SDS as a microsite? Yeah, that's got to be cheap.
Yeah. Sorry, you were about to tell me something about SDS.
I was about to tell the listeners that Forge World make books, obviously, for a lot of their game systems. Warhammer Fantasy Battles specifically. The book Val just held up, Tamra Khan, was a much more expensive than your traditional army book codex book. Thicker, much broader, much nicer paper. So just the production value much higher. The content's, I think, also excellent as well. Maybe some of the best content available. So then my follow-up question was going to be to you and also the audience. See, getting that engagement. That's what I'm doing. Getting that engagement.
Right. I like it.
Building it. When Old World does come out,
right,
are you wanting it to follow the Age of Sigmar 40K cheap production, very still high cost kind of books that they do for 40K, or do you want it to be the much more expensive, fancy, gilded page kind of like Forge World SDS book? How are you feeling?
The thing I'm feeling, and this might be wishful thinking, is that it feels like Horus Heresy and the Old World might be something that they have like created for the old heads. So like the people who want their like fancy books and they want their like lore driven stuff. They don't want a lot of updates. I don't know who that is, but anyway, slower pace, sort of nice plotting, very much rooted in nostalgia for a bygone time, perhaps the Bush administration, simpler times.
I have so now people won't know this because this is a 40K adjacent show thing. Obviously, we're very Bush administration heavy, but I have an amazing video to send you about that I watched last night, like 3-hour deep dive as I couldn't sleep.
Is it called Loose Change? Because I've seen it.
No, it's no, I think it's titled something along the lines of "How are all these people not in jail?"
Okay.
Yeah,
so, that's a fun game with the Bush administration. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll send you that later. But yeah, so you're thinking that this is definitely geared towards a different audience than maybe your trad. I guess we're calling 40K modern game design game. Okay,
yes.
Interesting. So did you pick a lane? Did you want the smaller codexes or did you want the big plump books?
I think I want so one thing that I do enjoy about the plump book approach is that it tends to favor a little bit of something for everybody. approach to releases. So Horus Heresy, although, and I don't know this, but like when they used to do the old book releases on Horus Heresy, if I recall correctly, each book would have a new legion or like faction in it, but there would also be shit for other people. Maybe there would be
Yes.
units that other people could use and like that kind of stuff. And so sort of as it dripped out, like, yeah, maybe because the problem is you get like this like asymmetrical development, right? Where like, each book kind of comes out on its own. And that's one of the things that killed Warhammer Fantasy to start with, is that you had these very big differences over a long period of time between the power level of the books. So if it were like a quarterly release thing where, each quarter everybody gets a little bit of something, maybe it's a nice fancy book. Maybe it's some rules released somewhere. That'd be great. But I can't see, if 40K barely hasn't even gotten off the ground yet with, an app-driven model. And we don't know what that looks like yet. We don't know. Are we subbing for regular rules updates? It seems like they suggested codexes are different now in the reveal from Adepticon. It seems like they might be moving towards a more sort of modern sort of living rule set, centralized games design. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm just speculating here.
I don't know either. I have some thoughts on this, but like, yeah.
But for as far as Old World is concerned, I'm assuming it's a small team, maybe just one guy with a Chat GPT sub for $20 a month.
Definitely got that Chat GPT sub.
And by the way, I can't believe that costs $20. That just it is such a slap in that just tells you the value of consciousness. It's $20 a month, everybody. If you want to subscribe to consciousness,
$20.
$20. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, I think it'll be probably a slow drip. If we look at models like Necromunda, like how Horus Heresy's been handled, you'll see a lot of support. It'll come out in sort of little spigots of it though, and it'll be very dense every time it drops. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I'm quite excited about it. On the 40K thing, just as an FYI, I thought about this a lot recently. 40K for all of 9th edition has sold, like, we could talk about too many stratagems, to anything else, has sold phenomenally well, and each and every single one of the metrics for how well it's going is up. Event attendance, sales, online media conversation about it, up. So, like, I think this. I know we could do this for a whole nother thing on another show, but I feel like as someone who's like looked at and been part of their marketing process, I was like, that's the same game. Like they're like, no, we've actually moved the rules from underneath to on the side, and also there's a new number, and you're like, right, okay, but strength and toughness is still there. Like they said, less stratagems, but not no stratagems. I'm like, this is just the same. Like. I think it's the same. Like, there's just a lot of bells and whistles on it being... Because why would you upset the apple cart on an absolute thunderingly, like, good time? Like, according to the audience.
Well, because they make their decisions based on a meta of 3 years ago, right? So, like, whatever this is a development cycle that's been going for a while. And perhaps they felt like, they whatever the customer survey told them when they, when they started developing this. And maybe it was in the nadir of 9th edition when they were really drip feeding us extra books. They weren't supporting those books with errata and FAQs, and everyone was very pissed. And the meta was very tilted. Even the casual meta was super tilted. If you happen to have a friend who played Drukhari, or if you had a friend who played AdMech, or any of the bugaboos, perhaps that was the time where they made their design philosophy choices. Or maybe not. Maybe they just wanted to hit a reset button to try and answer some of the critics about the style and game design of it. I know that systematically, what I'm looking for from 10th edition systematically is are they addressing the scale of points? So like, are they going to address the fact that there's not a lot of way. If you change a model that is worth 10 points by 1 point, it's a 10% swing. Do they understand that? Because I think the base level of models needs to go up. So a guardsman shouldn't be 10 points or whatever. It should be 100 points. You need granularity there. And then are they going to stop with the incremental releases where someone gets everything every month instead of everyone gets a little bit of something over a little period of time, which seems to be the way the GTE model works. The GT model seems to work that way, where they're releasing every 6 months a new rule set that benefits or disadvantages everyone equally. There's no reason why they couldn't approach their rules releases, models releases like that too.
Okay, interesting. All right. Okay. Well, listen. Let's not spend too long on the 40k because I'm in on the old world. So fuck
Well,
the Space Boys.
Well, this
Right.
is the thing, right? Like just to wrap it up a little bit here. Like I think a lot of that stuff are things that I pined for when I was like hardcore into, competitive tournaments, Warhammer 40,000 competitive tournaments specifically. I don't really care that much about that world right now. Maybe that changes in the future, but right now I don't really care. I am, however, in love with the old world and its old world ways, as a famous Canadian poet once said. So I just that's just where my head's at, and from that perspective, no matter what is released, like if we just get a box set with some cool new minis and it's got the shittiest rule set ever, we got Warhammer Armies Project and 8th edition to fall back on. Like there's no harm here. Like there's literally no way. It is impossible. I think this was one of our prediction questions. Will they fuck it up? Is it possible for them to fuck it up? Is I think where we got to, and I don't think there is, because the worst case scenario is like people are invigorated to play fantasy in some format, and if it really sucks in the core format, then there's others that we can play, and that's fun.
Yeah, it's a good question from Tristan in the chat, which I think I'd like to put a pin in. Should we be looking at how 30k is a dead game as a cautionary tale for the old world? And I was talking about this at lunch with Nick. 30k as like a tournament game system, I think, is definitely like dead on its heels.
Well, never was. Yeah, but okay.
And it always has been. But at one point was wildly popular. But that's because 40k wasn't good. So
Yes.
quite interesting. For me,
Screw you, Games Workshop. I'm gonna go play your more expensive game.
yeah, with more money. More money. Yeah.
Yeah, vote with your wallet.
But with Old World, absolutely no shot, because because I'm going to talk about it literally every week. Like, it can't possibly ever be dead, because like all you need to do is have someone involved in the community who's excited about producing stuff about the thing, and immediately that ups its efficacy. Like, that's how I really do feel about it. Like, I've been looking at a lot of different game systems, and I've been looking at like the community leaders for those game systems over the past like few months, and let's just say, like, there's a couple of game systems, I'm not going to name which ones, where you don't really want to jump feet first, because then you think, right, who is the biggest YouTuber on this game system? And then you think, I am not hanging out with that guy. They are not cool. I'm super into Old World. I think Old World will be massive. And I think even if it's not massive, we here at least will build a thriving community of people who can be involved in it, because I'm going to be involved in it, because it's thrilling. Should we talk about the update article?
Hey man, it was a while ago. I've already forgotten most of it. I think we saw some arms and some heads.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
So we got the development diary, and this is actually pretty exciting.
This is the first model sighting.
This is some of the first model sighting stuff, but also like there's some big news in here which answers some of our questions which we did on the prediction show. So development diary, Old World development diary. Also, can we talk about the frequency of these development diaries is increasing?
100p. Yep.
Which means it's getting closer, gang.
So to review, I believe you called September and I called October because you said September 1st.
But
so
now we're set on
Q2.
November.
Yeah. Pardon?
Now we're set on November.
You think it's November?
100p. Like I'll start.
November.
I'll start doing cash bets on that.
Taking some bets.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
On November.
Yeah.
I remember. I heard about. I don't know, man. I heard about some orc buggies for a lot longer than
Got it though. It took a fucking while.
You were right. You were right eventually, but it did take a little while.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe it's November next year. Right, okay, so Old World Development Diary, revealing the weapons of war. In today's article, we're visiting the armories of the Old World and giving you a first look at the weapons and war gear that can be found in brand new plastic kits coming from the Kingdom of Bretonia and Tomb Kings of Kenry on guard. So that's the first bit. They're plastic kits.
Yeah.
So that's huge, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm blasé about it because obviously they're plastic kits. Like yes, yeah.
There was a concern it was going to be Forge World resin.
Yeah. Yes, but how much Forge World resin is being produced these days? And like, it's probably gonna be 3D printed resin soon. So like, yeah. I think you look at what this unit has been doing, the Specialist Design Studio. And they've been
SDS.
producing sick plastic kits. Necromunda, Horus Heresy, other games. Everything they do is in plastic.
Other things.
Other things, everything they do is in plastic. So yeah, I'm so happy to see that they are also doing this, and not. I guess there is an alternate reality where they just re-release the old stuff. I'm glad to see that we are vindicated on this point.
Yes. So I thought they were going to re-release old stuff. So like that's
They
kind of
will.
that they will, but like I thought they weren't going to update them at all. This looked like they're going to update them. So
Yes.
now then we got the first pictures. First what's set is a bunch of Bretonnian like
I
helmets.
know you're
and
trying to move
shields.
forward. Can we just marinate in one little
Oh yeah,
subsection
please
sector
go.
of this, which is Cities of Sigmar thing happening. So Cities of Sigmar was released as Autumn. They have their own specific, unique, and designed miniatures, right?
Yes.
My thought on this is, does that basically they're doing that to free up 4 different ranges to be re-released. So that to me says that the Empire, the Dwarves, the High Elves, and the Dark Elves, all of which have reasonably new-ish plastic kits that could pass, will just get fully removed from AOS. So those guys are no longer involved at all. They get reboxed and re-released their full lineups as
So I,
they were.
so I have this picture actually that's been leaked, or I'm not sure. So let me take a moment. This is current. I should have forwarded this to you earlier. I'm sorry.
Breaking
Uh,
news! Breaking news!
Breaking news. I won't be
Brrr.
able to get
That's
it
a
up on the screen. So these are things that are staying on the shelf in Age of Sigmar from Cities of Sigmar. So Dreadlord on Black Dragon, Sorceress on Black Dragon, Assassin, Black Ark, Fleetmaster, Rune Lord, Sorceress, Warden King, and then it's Bleak Swords, Dark Shards, Dread Spears, Iron Breakers, Longbeards, and then Black Ark Courses, Black Guard, Dark Riders, Drakespawn Chariots, Drakespawn Knights, Hammerers, Iron Drakes, War Hydra Cryptis. So basically, Dark Elves and Dispossessed Dwarfs, so old dwarfs, are
yeah.
staying in Age of Sigmar, but the Wood Elves are vanishing from Age of Sigmar. They're off, so I assume they're going into Old World. Some
High
of the high
elves.
elf, some of the high elf stuff is vanishing. I assume that's going into Old World as well.
All of
Um,
the Empire stuff. None of the
and
altars
all
are
and
there.
all of the Empire stuff is going because they're going to obviously redo the Cities of Sigmar, so they won't need that. Maybe that'll go into like maybe that'll go into Forge World, sorry SDS stuff, or maybe they're just going to be they're like cool, we're retiring the Empire, we're going to do a new Empire sculpts. It kind of makes sense why they would do new Empire sculpts, like because it's a different time period. There's different lore and stuff going on, and also sell us new models. Like,
And those core troops are like that. Those core troops are certainly some of the oldest ones. Like the Empire, I just mean they pass, but man, those halberdiers, they stink. From just opposing like just the way they're posed and stuff.
so to
Um,
like Pistoliers.
I love pistoliers.
Nah, not on the horse. The horse looks awful.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, look, all that stuff can be. Look, what I was saying is like they don't. I don't know. I don't find them awful. I think they pass. I like when I look at them, I
Oh,
don't think, oh, that's
really?
derpy as. Like when I look at old 4th edition stuff, like 5th edition, 4th edition stuff, the stuff that like is old Hammer that like people get really like misty eyed and like nostalgic for. I don't. Like I like stuff that looks, I think, somewhat good, and that generally speaking corresponds to me with the era of CAD design, which is probably turn of the century ish. So like and that also corresponds to when I was most into Warhammer, so that makes sense too, as a kid. So yeah, essentially the only thing that I pull from what you just said is actually that I don't think the whether or not something is present in Cities of Sigmar has any import on whether or not they'll be present in Old World then. So
So
my theory is completely blown up.
I have a theory right now. Like, so this is my current working theory. Either something is something is either replaced. Like, for instance, I don't think Lizardmen will be in Old World because right now they're only just releasing the Seraphon models in Age of Sigmar. So I think
Right.
what they'll do is they'll wait until Seraphon gets and this is for all the scalies in the chat, which is all of them. Seraphon gets all of its new model ranges, and then the Old World team look at those models and they think, right, where does Lizardmen sit against that? Like we won't see Skaven in Old World, I assume, or we will. Like, because they're going to look at Skaven and they think, right, there's probably plans for Skaven to get resculpted in Age of Sigmar in the next 3 to 6 years. So they'll be like, we're going to wait to see what you do with Skaven, then we'll strategize what we'll do with Skaven. If not, we're going to just take those models directly, or we're going to do our own version of Skaven. It's kind of where I think maybe it'll be at. Initially, I thought maybe there'll be like a war, but it's probably more like, do you know what? You're re-envisioning in it. What do we think that looks like, and can we incorporate it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I feel what you're saying, but they have already painted themselves in the corner by just stating up front that you'll be able to use anything that you got. So like your old models will be able to be used is like a blanket statement that they've made. So I would hope
do we trust them on that?
Well, that's a pretty bold proclamation, and like in the sense that if you renege on that, then you're gonna really immediately shit the bed on launch. Like right. So like for me, I think there's gonna have to be some sort of whatever was available to play in 8th edition. There's got to be some sort of counts as, or like you can use these generic rules for the time being, index style stuff or legend style stuff, as a holdover as they work their way through the old world and whatever that looks like. But I would think that there'd be something that'd be almost like setting agnostic generic rules, like legend style rules for everything that existed. This is my hope, not anything I know. And then on top of that, as they re-release stuff, you get things. Because Servon specifically are really fascinating to me because, and you just saw this too with the Terminators that got announced for 40K. So the Terminators, Primaris Marines in general, you had the Gravis, the Phobos, and the Primaris Tactical guys, whatever the fuck they are. I guess they're, I can't remember. Doesn't matter. But they had analogs to the previous style models. But they were redesigns, right? The Repulsor is not a Land Raider and it's not a Rhino. Yep. You know, it's its own sort of thing, but it's ish. It's of that thing, right? It's inspired by. But they were evolutions of those designs. When you look at the new Terminator they just announced, it is literally it's the same derpy fucking it's the same derpy proportions. So like if you were to try and figure out how does a person actually fit in that suit of armor, it's awkward as hell because it's derpy. All they did was resize it. They made it bigger. They scaled it a little bit larger. That's all that they did. And the Seraphon, they're in a lot of ways just sort of embiggened lizard men. Like they are beautiful, but they are 1-to-1 the model range that existed being made larger and brought into a modern design philosophy, kind of like Primaris were. But it's still 1-to-1. Like there's like almost. Are there any net new units really?
Yeah,
in the
yeah. There's skink. There's skink riding. Like cavalry. So like a light skink cav.
Previously existed.
Oh, did it previously exist for lizardmen?
They were a Dogs of War unit at least, and maybe a 5th edition unit as well.
Okay, well that's fantastic. And then there's an alternate Croxagore. There's like a dual kit Croxagore. So there's a Croxagore, then there's like a slightly different Croxagore. So there's a kind of a thing there. But yeah, you're right. Like it is a 1-for-1. So that's a good point. And ultimately, like the conversation we're having now is just a conversation I wish that they just clarify. That would be cool. Like that would be cool.
Yeah, like a roadmap. Yeah,
like a roadmap. Like that would be fun. Just clarify that a little bit. Because also I think that would get people hype if they were like, by the way, in the future there's going to be Skaven. Get hype. That's all you need. That's all you need. But they have clarified what some stuff we are going to get. So should we talk about it?
I guess if you want, sure. Although I'm going to quickly say, Provoke Trees, who's in chat. You asked about surely some stuff doesn't exist in the new timeline. We extensively delve into that, I believe, in our first episode. If you go back, but to answer real quick, steam tanks do exist in the old world time frame. It is after Leonardo de Mirangelo, or whatever the hell his name was, and I would assume Gyrocopter's similar boat. Okay, let's move on.
All right, perfect. All right, so plastic kits, we're in love with that. Also, because it's like 25% cheaper immediately as a game system. Like an immediate, that's an incredible line. That's like the whole game system is 25% cheaper than it could have been. Fantastic. Like I don't know what that, even more if you live in the colonies.
I mean, the cost of these kits is a function of whatever they decide to charge for them. So
no, but the cost to us, is 25% cheaper.
Assuming that they keep that pricing model, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's true. They might just
They
be
might
like,
make this might still be a premium pricing model, and that's the way it is. But I have no idea, man. I'm
that's
just
true.
being. But look, each one of these things costs a nickel to produce. You know,
Yeah.
once the design is done, once the tooling's done, once the box is made. That's why all the like conspiracy theories about like, oh, they have warehouses of unsold stuff. I'm like, they're not warehousing shit. They're fucking throwing it in the recycling bin.
Oh yeah,
It's getting shredded.
yeah,
Like
shredded.
so like the unit cost of a box of minis is plastic pellets and cardboard. So like these things are cheap as hell. So whatever they want to charge for it is what they decide it's worth charging for it. Hopefully that number is lower than higher, of course.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't
Right.
know why I crucified you over that comment. It was
No, it's okay.
very
I
innocuous.
understand. Like, yeah, I was just basically saying it's not Forge or resin, so it's 25% cheaper. That's what I
I
meant.
get you. I get you.
Okay, so we get to see some Bretonnian stuff. So we're pretty set that the launch box, the FOMO box, will be Bretonnia versus Tomb Kings because that's all they keep fucking talking about. So like, it seems very obvious that's what we're being prepped for. And then what does everyone think? What does the chat think? What do YouTube people think? What does everyone think about this set of stuff? We've got 3 new head sculpts and we've got 3 shields. And I gotta say, I'm 100% in on a Bretonnian army. You've got me by the short and curlies. There's no way I'm not doing a Bretonnian army. This is where I'm at, Val. I'm doing a Bretonnian army. I'm doing a Chaos Dwarf army. And then there's a swing vote on an army so far. But that's where I'm at. That's where I'm
Okay.
at. But Bretonnian, 100%. Yeah?
Yeah.
Like, 100%. So, what do you think about the sculpts?
Well, again, I don't remember the article, so I don't know what's coming. But my first thought is those shields don't have any texture on them. So I'm wondering,
Sorry,
are we
negative
getting?
space.
Yes, it's negative space. So that makes me think about them horsies, because I like lines that I can fill in, and I think one of the biggest criticisms of Bretonnians previously was that they were really fucking hard to paint, and they were hard to paint because you actually had to have painting skill to do them, because you needed to be able to like paint a straight line and shit if you want to do heraldry and stuff fun. You could do big blocks of colors or whatever, but it was harder. The model didn't decide for you a lot of things. So I'm hopeful that maybe we get some, plastic bits that you can put onto those shields, so that way, it's not like a transfer or something like that.
Well, I mean, number one, the 3D print market, you'll be able to print a whole bunch of fleur-de-lis or whatever you want in there. Like, absolutely. Thanks, HGM Kenny, for resubscribing. Super great guy. Thanks very much. I would say that, like, the people that are producing this game, I want to say, finely aged gentlemen in SDS, who are producing a game that is not based on modern game design. It is like going to be a rehash of one of the older game systems. No way do they not think that you painting your army with your own, like, they're like, get good, scrub. There's no way that isn't their methodology or mentality. They've not designed this and thought, how do we make this easy for the consumer? And they're like, you need to go watch. Like, they want you to go to like the local game store and hang out and learn how to do all sorts of like painting here. Like, they're like, what? You don't have an art degree? Like, oh wait, you didn't sculpt your own print to paint it on? Like, come on, you're a child. That's their mentality, in my opinion. So I think that's what we're
Here's
looking at.
1,000 decals. Good luck.
Yeah, made in metal. Clip them off and stick them
brass. This is actually brass etching. Good luck.
on. Good luck and fuck off.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I think that they'll be. So, like, are you in on these? What armies do you want to collect? Probably all, but
Well, actually, I think of the ones that I've held off on that I'm interested in any way, shape, or form, it's Tomb Kings. So I have not. I've
Really?
been close, but never pulled the trigger on any Tomb King models whatsoever. And so yeah, I think me and Tech Priest Dicky I'll go have halvesies. I'll keep the Tomb Kings, and he can have his beloved Bretonnians back.
amazing.
I pulled the trigger, for example, on some Bretonnians. So I have a used Bretonnians army by an old GW employee.
Oh, nice.
But the reason I value that is how nice the sculpts are. Those ones are painted. So That's for me. I just love painted minis. So if I come across a reasonably priced army, I will usually pick it up. But I haven't done that for Tomb Kings. So if there was one that I'd be excited for Tomb Kings, it would be Tomb Kings because they're cool as hell.
Well, let's go look at those things. So, let's just
Do we
quickly
get
read this
nothing
bit.
else for Bretonnians? I thought there was some
Just,
arms or something.
there's some weapons, so I'll just read the next bit. Fresh from the forges of fair Bretonia come new helmet, weapons, and shields. By the way, just worth pointing out that every time we've seen them with a 3D render, they've shown us a 3D render for a sculpt. That means that these are already fully painted and inside codexes. We saw the renders for the World Eaters, and then we got the World Eater book codex leak literally the week after.
Right.
Where they were in the book, fully painted, and the book had been printed and produced. Similarly, the Cities of Sigmar renders that we saw only a few months ago, we now know the book is done and available for launch. So that means that everything's printed, ready to go, and sorted. So just worth noting. Bretonnian knights commonly adorn their helmets with creatures that appear on their family heraldry or those they believe they share a personality trait with. A knight famed for being stubborn in the face of adversity might sport a horned bull, while a noble renowned for the love of hunting may embellish their helm with a pair of antlers. These large helmets feature just a small section of the fantastical birds and beasts you'll see with the Bretonnian marches to war. That's pretty cool. And then there's a couple of things I want to say about the weapons here, Val, which I'm actually very, 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 very excited about.
Go
Number
ahead.
one, can we just look at how that connects to the body? Or, like, the connection piece is just a flat, smooth shoulder joint. That
Pretty old
is
school, isn't it?
pretty old school and absolutely, like, that's really exciting. No, we've cut it at the navel in a weird, like acid trip level of cut up to the shoulder pad. Like, it's just, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And you can never build them. That's perfect, in my opinion. That's
My
pretty great.
question is, are we buying it? Well, there's no reason why you couldn't have an entire like CAD model designed in CAD and then chop off the arms so that you can present them like this. But then when you chop them up to make them into a
Oh,
sprue,
yeah, that's a
they're
good
very
point.
different. However, yeah,
That's a
this
good
is
point.
this is pretty old school. And who knows how the body, like maybe the bodies will wind up being like the torso and like half his dick and like his chin is one piece and then like his right butt cheek and like the down to his calf is another piece. Like that, the rest of it could all be really weird. And then the arms could give you some modularity. Maybe the other one's a lance. So yeah, totally possible that this is something that just plugs on. But be unusual in their game design style. Another interesting, like these look like to me that they look like they're cavalry arms as well. People have been speculating, are these like foot knights maybe? But the way they're being held out, that feels like someone getting ready to like charging on a horse, getting ready to like slash down. So I feel good about these guys.
I feel good about these guys. I mean, they haven't shown us the lances, which feels very common, like as a thing to maybe show for Bretonia. This is just the hand weapons, but they look cool. I think the big thing there is the excitement. The fact that there's, you're right. Now I'm kind of like a bit. You put a bit of rain on my fire, a bit of goo on my shine. That they might not come out that way, but I really hope they come out that way because they look fantastic.
Hey, you seem to have a deeper insight into what this means. So, like, I don't know. Like, think about previous times they've done renders. Did they come out as those parts, or did they get remixed somehow later on? I don't know.
That's a really great question. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. So I will by tomorrow know that information because that's a little bit. But they have shown these CAD things, which has been fun. Before. Right, to carry on with the article, the fleur de lis is a common symbol and features prominently upon metallic trim of these shields. The fleur de lis, oh no, I suppose it's all based on real world stuff, so that's no point in that question. There is also plenty of room on the shield face to display the heraldry of whichever high-ranking noble your knights have pledged to, so it doesn't say whether or not they'll provide something for that. While the sword and lance are preferred arms of the nobility, some knights, especially those from Breton, prefer the head-hewing potential of a battle axe. For the more traditional-minded knight, however, there is a swath of sword options, each with the classic Bretonnian iconography on the crossguard or pommel. There we go. And then we move into your boys, the Tomb Kangs.
TKs.
The Tomb Kangs. And here we see a variety of different... we've got these daiths. We've got a very intricate shield. We've got like a banner. We've got some lances. we've got some flails, and then we've got some little assortment bugs.
Now, if we scroll down there a little bit, if we
Yeah.
could, are those like to the spear to the weapons? Now, those to me, they feel like two-handed weapons. Like especially the middle two there. Like so, one looks like a very long. How's that guy holding that? That seems like the banner bearer is very tall. Am I crazy about this?
Could just be stood on a tactical rock.
He could be on a rock. Do we think that this feels like Tomb Guard to me? Is what I'm trying to get to. Like those look like heavy two-handed weapons.
Oh, interesting. I think that this is a variety of kits. I think everything we're seeing here is like a variety of things. And what's it? Well, interestingly, they're all definitely, unless they've rescaled them down, they've all got the same hand. So it's like it's going to be a skeleton warrior of some kind, whether that be Tomb Guard, whether that be skeleton warriors. Like it's like whether that be some elite other unit. It looks like they're all the same size hand. So there's not like we're not seeing like an Ushbati weapon or something. Have I said that right? Ushbati?
Ushtabi?
Ushtabi?
Yeah. Ushtabi!
Ushtabi? Are we seeing Tomb Princes? That's a good point, Tristan, in the chat. It's not a banner, it's a staff. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's what's being said, yeah.
Yeah. I like the shield.
That looks like a banner to me, not a staff.
So you're
just
more
the way it's being presented.
Yeah, so you're more into the shield on this because it tells you where to paint.
Yes, and it's textured. So like that would slap chop up nice.
Nice. Yes,
you know
it
what
would.
I'm saying?
I think all of the Tomb King stuff would slap chop up real nice.
Fuck me, right?
Yeah.
Another reason why I like it. So, and also because it's not 3D printed, it won't snap when you're fucking dry brushing it. Unless you've figured out a good tenacious fast blend mix, which I have not. So yeah, I also like the very like the strong stylistic choices in like the shape of the blades. They kind of given me some like Arabian Nights / Klingon vibes. So that's pretty cool. And that flail, look at that mean flail. Ooh.
The flail is very cool.
It's weird that these are all single-handed by skeleton arms. This is a little weird to me that there's not a second hand on any of these weapons, because it feels heavy for like a guy with no musculature to be able to wield these things.
Yeah, but I would also like to follow up with, again, it does look like the connection point between the weapon and the model. Again, it could be just the way it's sliced to present on screen, so you could be absolutely right. But it does look like it's just a flat connection between the wrist and the hand, which is also excellent. Very cool. I like that a lot, personally. I hope that that's where they go. I hope they really, not just change the script, but I hope they do. I hope they kind of turn around to main studio and say, look, people want the way these designed this way. Let's make it easier to put together. I hope that someone in the company is pushing for that angle when it comes to building the minis. That would be really great.
Well, also, I mean, look at how again, it's that old heads approach too, right? So look at how the Horse Heresy kits are set up. So where they have all of those modular arm stuff and weapons that you can slap onto your tactical squads and things. So maybe it's a design choice to cater to, people who liked this style, the ones who grumble about how you can't what's the word? You can't convert things anymore because it's too hard.
But I think everyone likes this style, don't they? Everyone wants it this way. I don't think there's anyone who wants it the way they currently slice files. Am I wrong?
There's kind of a magic to it, I think, and you do get the net effect of it too, is the ability to have really ridiculous and dynamic poses. So I think there is something to that. But then again, there's bad ways to do it too. I don't know if you've ever assembled a Mega Knob, but a Mega Knob is the least dynamic. He's the least dynamic.
It's just a block
model. He's a block, but that block is assembled in I think 7 or 8 pieces, for his legs and his torso. So there's awful ways to do it, and then there's really clever ways to do it too, like how the Skitarii go together and stuff.
Yeah, the way I like how the Skitarii and Gene Stealer cults are interchangeable, the main sculpts.
That's neat. I never knew that.
Do you not know that?
No, didn't know that.
Yeah, they're literally built to interchange with each other, which I think
is. Well, isn't that interesting? What does that even mean, man?
Well, you could put you can swap the heads, you can swap the bodies, swap the legs, swap the arms, which I think is.
When when you scale your miniatures correctly, that is possible. So that's great. I'm really curious to see too, like how close to 32 millimeter they get. Do they go the Horus Heresy route of like 30 millimeter? So like they don't go all in on 32 millimeter. They stay close, like sort of hedge towards the 28 millimeter scale. Because again, as I like to bang on about, heroic scale is a 28 millimeter body with a 32 millimeter head and pair of hands. And these hands, they look scaled correctly to that weapon. So are they going for actual 28 millimeter? So you don't have gigantic heads and hands. Think of how the Cadians look now. Everyone's like, Cadians' heads are so small. It's like, nope. Cadians have proper size heads for a or for a person of that size. So I'm curious to see like exactly where the scaling comes in, because that is one other thing about that you can differentiate too with Sigmar is like Sigmar clearly is designed on that 32 millimeter side of the scale, and that's also where a lot of the 3D printers tend to design is at 32 millimeter, not 28.
Yeah, I'm hoping it comes in at 32 personally. Yeah, the new Horus Heresy minis have tiny heads, or do they just have correctly sized heads? That's the question.
Probably correctly sized heads, because you got to make them fit that body, right? Like, yeah. So the head, the bodies, in Horus Heresy Marines, the body size came up, but the head size probably would have had to come down a little bit, because the Primaris helmet, for example, is the exact same size as the 2014 TAC Marine size helmet. It's just that they scaled the body correctly to 32 millimeter.
Yeah, they made it make more sense. Okay, right. So then the article goes on to say, Tomb Kings and Lich Priests have always carried weapons and artifacts of exquisite quality and artifice. First up is the ornate spear with wings projecting from the shaft, a feature designed to prevent an impaled victim from sliding too far down the blade. Above the spear is a spiked flail, decorated with a symbol of a scarab towards the bottom of the handle, a common icon in Khemri, and Numas, known as the Scarab City in particular. So that's on there. The large bladed halberd and curved khopesh are signature weapons, each capable of slicing through armor, flesh, and bone with long, sweeping blows. So, weapons such as these have claimed untold number of lives in the name of Setra and the Imperishable and the eternal glory of Nakahara. Alongside these is a ceremonial staff decorated with the skulls and bones held in the grip of a mummified hand. When the Lich Priests harness their magic to command the vast legions of the undead, they rely upon these arcane staffs, to channel their macabre magic more effectively, reducing the risk of the fickle winds of magic. Thanks to the Old World team for being a part of the team that produced this, obviously. So Tomb Kings versus Bretonia. That feels like absolutely the launch box, therefore also the story. We talked about this a little bit on a previous show, kind of just to cover old ground, I know. But do you think it's a versus situation, or they're both going to be the antagonists in slightly different plot lines?
That's a good question. I mean, like they have again framed. I think in other places this is sort of in an era of a great war against chaos. Neither of which the Bretonnians or Tomb Kings usually like scream out, big opponents of chaos. Although obviously there are examples of that. To me, this feels like a versus match. That might be a subplot to the overarching narrative, which is the Bretonnians go on quests into the Khemri wastes or whatever with some frequency, and they go tomb raiding and they go steal relics and stuff. Réponse de l'Aînés in Warhammer 2 Total War, my absolute favorite campaign, because you invade North Africa and go kill some skeletons. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, I can't wait to be a Chaos Dwarf doing a campaign in literally something like 20 days. It's all over. It's R.I.P. R.I.P. R.I.P.
Bye-bye, Rob. Yeah,
bye-bye,
exactly.
Rob. Yeah. Like 2 weeks later in a coma.
You just come to. Yeah.
A previous article says Setra invading the lands he used to own in Bretonia and the Empire. There we go. Thanks, Gilthos, in the chat. So it sounds like I quite like that idea because they're quite opposed in many ways. Like they're odd. They're odd fighting buddies. Like they're odd at war. It's something new, which is quite fun. Versus your Empire versus your dwarfs versus orcs and goblins. You're like, that's kind of fun. So this is a nice bit of grounding of when I used to play Warhammer Fantasy Battle in 8th edition. these were two of the least popular armies. Tomb Kings weren't very good, or they didn't see a lot of play generally, and also Brettonia weren't very good and didn't see a lot of play. So these were two of the rarer armies that I would never actually ever get to play against.
Sure.
So actually, pretty excited for these being the two launch armies.
They're also the only two armies that didn't make the transition.
Yes, I mean that's why it feels so obvious to this to be the first out the bat. Like,
Yeah.
and then I guess leading on from that, like if it was you, you get given the reins to the keys to the castle. What's the second army? The third army. So these two, they get books, they get their codexes, their battle army, their battle books, whatever that looks like. I assume we'll launch with like an index system, and then from that point on, we'll end up getting codexes and battle army books.
Hopefully we get. Yeah, I hope we get one of these every now and again. That's what I'm hoping for.
Me too. What would be your third army? I know what mine would be, but and chat, same question. What would your third army be? If you were them, what you bring into the fore? I think I think it's an obvious answer, but
to me, you keep mining things that haven't been touched by AOS. So I would say they swing to like Tilea or like Dogs of War or some shit. They go right. They just keep going to the mat with nostalgic choices. I mean, there's also like functional choices that they have to do, such as Empire. Seems obvious.
I think that would be that's me. I'm like Empire third book, no question. But like I don't know if that's the case, but it would just be like cool, establish the scene and then just give us the humans. Like that's what Age of Sigmar's missed. Age of Sigmar's missed a trick for like 6 years by not just having the humans.
Yeah, well, maybe that's why Bretts are out of the gate like that, right? But like if so, like the things that remain in AOS maybe suggest to me what are going to get redone. So like if Dark Elves and Dwarves are staying in AOS, those kids stay current. That says to me that your Empire, your High Elves, and your Wood Elves are getting a retool.
For me,
elves and humans would be you're right. Elves or humans would be the thing that happens next.
I feel like the humans is like the immediate like backstory. You get the humans on the board, you get the civil war, you let the humans happen. That feels like and then probably dwarfs. I know you're fleshing out a lot of like there's no chaos there in that example, but you're fleshing out a lot of like just the people, kind of the side of good. But it feels like that's an obvious one. But then I agree with you. I think if you want big money, then Kislev comes out, then Cathay comes out. But I think that's further down the line. I feel like they give us, it's kind of interesting. Like, it's really weird. It's actually such an amazingly fascinating release because you're starting with, you're relaunching something that's existed for such a long time. Like, you've got an established setting in which to kind of grow into that setting. And those choices are pretty wild. In fact, Tomb Kings and Bretonnians are actually pretty wild first choice.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Neither of them are Space Marines in any obvious way. And and for something that's purportedly about or in the era of the Great War Against Chaos, you would think that you maybe see some Space Marines of fantasy, which are the Chaos Warriors. Again, maybe they went with these because there's something that are not available, right? So like, what does this? Games Workshop's always going to prioritize new kits because new kits is new business for them. Whenever they release new stuff, I think that's where they make the best margins. New rules corresponding with old kits also can reinvigorate even shitty old models. Reference salamanders and any number of things over the years in 40K. So like, but in general, new kits are what sells, right? So like, new stuff is what they put their efforts behind. They're going to have to probably, we don't know this, but like they probably will have to have some degree of old stuff come out. But the intention to replace them all must be there, I would think.
Yeah, I wonder if they do though. I wonder if they just be like, sit on your minis. Like if you got the minis, you're good. If not, like we're not providing them. Interesting point about what you've said. Maybe they'll do a massive made-to-order kind of purchase. Someone in the chat reckons that they've cracked it. Bretts and Tomb Kings, Empire, and then Orcs and Goblins. Feels like Orcs and Goblins a big sell.
Orcs and goblins were very early out of the gate. Oh. We can just go to what they've already shown us. They've shown us Bretonnians, Tomb Kings, Orcs and Goblins, and Empire. That was in
In
their
the art article.
illustrations.
That's true. Yeah,
Yes.
that's true.
So actually, that's probably a pretty good indicator right there. Orcs and Goblins, almost that entire range has run off. They've obviously redone Goblins as Gloomspite in a big way. A lot of those things will translate very well into the old world. But as far as just like orcs are concerned, they haven't touched them in a long time. So yeah, that would make sense. Greenskins were the first book, I think, of 8th edition, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah, I think.
But Tomb Kings and Greenskins actually were either one. Actually, it may have been Tomb Kings and Greenskins, something like that. But they were pretty early in the lineup. But I feel like we know that there's Kislev and Cathay out there, right?
Yes.
And those don't feel like opponents. But those feel like things that they would want to do because everything else kind of does double shift work, right? Everything else isn't unique. So they've launched unique armies here. They've got the Tomb Kings and the Bretonnians. They don't exist in any other system. So what other things don't exist in AOS that they could focus their releases on? And I think that to me is what my gut would be. And then the AOS stuff will release as AOS and be able to, in a sane world, would be able to do double duty. So that's it. Those Seraphons, they can do double duty, so we don't have to like focus a big release on them.
Yeah, Empire is an interesting one because Empire and Cities of Sigmar being released at the same in the same
Wild.
maybe year-long window is
Yeah.
pretty wild. So they will have to identify, but then ultimately, I think what's quite kind of cool is maybe they're helping design, maybe they're helping inform each other. Like we don't know, and especially as we're going back in time. I like the human civil war idea, like angle that we talked about the other week. I love that idea. I love that. Like I'm definitely gonna like nerd out and pick a city state after I've read a lot of lore about it. Okay, these are Nolan is for me, although it won't be Nolan, lame.
They're also putting themselves in a situation where when they don't normally do this anymore, where they have rules but no kits. And what that does is it gives other producers the opportunity to fill those gaps.
I
And
don't
when
think
you
they're doing
have,
that. I don't think they're ever doing that again. Do you think?
they have to. How else are they going to do this? How else are they doing this? Because so either they have rules, and they bring back the kits that correspond with all of those rules, right? Like that would be one thing. Or they have only rules for stuff that they have new kits for. I don't know. Neither of those seem to work for me. So like, I feel like the indexes have to account for everything that's existed before, and therefore there will be rules for things that don't have kits. Maybe. I don't know.
I reckon they're just going to like if they don't have the miniatures to sell, it's not getting a rule. My opinion.
Well, that's a good chunk of fantasy.
I know. Like that's what I think. Like I think that maybe you're right. Maybe they'll provide rules. Maybe I don't know. Like that's quite interesting. Like I'm not sure. Like, it feels weird to give like outside producers the opportunity to have Rob. They make rules for minis. They don't sell on iOS. Are there like very few, or very few anymore? And in fact, actually, I guess like they have holdover rules, but I think they're generally getting away from it. But that would be an odd. If I was in charge of that department, that was not something that I would let fly. But I'd just be like, don't do that. Like, just trim it down.
GW, I mean, as cocky as they are about it, when they do release official models, it's rare that there's a third party one that holds up. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
I don't agree
people
with
love.
that.
Well, no, that's you specifically, but people love official. You know what I mean? Like people love official, and that'll be interesting too because this group, the people who still give a shit about the old world, have as time has gone on and things have been harder and harder to replace, have drifted further and further away from official sculpts and really embraced 3D printing and like the Kings of War stuff and all of the like traditional miniature makers out there that offer alternatives. So I'll be curious to see, like, do people rush back to the fold, or do they use their old stuff? Are they excited to buy new things? It'll be really interesting to see how it all gets handled.
Yeah, I agree. Perfect way to wrap up the show. We only a quick one this week, I'm afraid, chat. And then next week we'll be back for just the most insane deep dive of Chaos Dwarfs you may have ever seen. Maybe
We got to do some work.
Oh boy. A quick TLDR, Val. They're the coolest dwarfs because They just don't listen to the man, right?
Uh, now, if I might be wrong about this, but they seem like industrial slavers. So I think they are the man.
Uh, excuse me. Industry, it makes a slave of us all. So
Specifically, the people who work for the Chaos Dwarfs, but also yes, all of us.
I think in Total War they've been described as laborers, and
Labor, yeah, they're laborers,
they've
yeah.
intentionally ignored the word, or it's a bit of like a satirical punch at labor in society now by Creative Assembly. They're
I think the
throwing it.
Dark Elves have slaves in
They
Total
do,
War.
they do,
Yeah,
they do.
yeah.
So maybe they're going to move away from that in the old world, and they will become laborers.
Who knows, man?
Square bast,
Square bass.
square bast. Right.
Don't let the bourgeois Chaos Dwarfs get you down.
Have you got any shout outs for this week?
Any shouts for this week? The guys over at the Electric Counts, the guy named Renee has led. I've rarely ever seen like a defunct podcast actually make a full comeback, and this one has been. And he's must be manic or something because he's just releasing so much shit with Australians just talking nonsense about fantasy. So if you're interested in 8th edition, they're really excited about Warhammer Armies Project. If you're still thirsty for stuff, they did probably like 5 hours on Tomb King specifically.
Fuck.
So like they're into it. And that's 8th edition Tomb Kings, and I don't know, it's fun listening to them yammer on. So if you're thirsty for fantasy content, as I am always, and you can't just hang out with Rob every week to scratch that itch, Electric Count's pretty cool.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Chat, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, everyone. If you are watching this, please do like, subscribe, #SquareBast.